EKGs in Syncope. The reason why I wanted to select this topic, it's not sexy, it's not, you know, cutting edge, but it's something that we see every day, right? There's barely a shift that we go by where we don't see somebody who's syncopized. And we're going to talk about the role of EKG in that and how you're looking for different things when you're looking at an EKG for syncope compared to when you're looking at it for other pathology. So why don't you guys do this without that being up? Any ideas? Whatever. Yeah. Why don't you guys give me some answers for? It should show up with a question on your thing, right?
Yes.
All right. You guys can type stuff in. So I just wanted to get an idea of like what you guys know, what kind of history, what kind of physical exams, what kind of stuff should we. You're gonna see all each other's answers. The wonderful thing is there's not a ton of wrong answers for this.
This can be phrases, yeah.
Huh?
It can be phrases or
It
what?
could be anything you want. Poop emojis. I don't think there's a melena emoji on here, but that would be appropriate.
I'm fine one.
Whoever's poop emoji should put poop emoji.
Hey Brian.
Yeah.
I'm still downloading the app, but can you just say what the question was?
Oh, sorry. The question is what history or physical exams you're looking for somebody who syncopizes.
And you can go to the website. Probably quicker.
Okay.
Just Google it. Unsigned as a student.
You don't even need to sign it.
Alright, so let's see what people said. So GI bleed, sudden onset headache, so associated symptoms of maybe some hypoperfusion, their history, whether they have a lot of comorbidities. So post-syncope confusion, so that's getting at whether this was syncope versus seizure, which is a good thing to ask. They have a prior history of heart failure or prior arrhythmias. Palpitations before, loss of bowel function, prodrome. Cool. So, these are our established syncope rules. They generally have a theme, right? Is there comorbidity, or are there comorbidities? Does this person have a low volume status, or particularly a low hemoglobin? So you want to ask for a lot of things about bleeding, right? AAAs, GI bleeds, ruptured ectopics, and then ECG is a common factor. This is the only, notice the only non-history or physical thing up on this slide for all of our scores is an ECG, right? So that's why I wanted to point out, technically the only test you really have to get other than vital signs and a history and physical is an ECG for syncope, right? All right, so let's go to our first little EKG. You guys should all see the EKG on your screen, right? So I want you to just try to highlight what you think is abnormal about that. I think I tried to start off a little more straightforward, and then we're going to get more nuanced as we go through the EKGs. And you can write on it if you think you have, like, if you want to write what you think it is or whatever. So it looks like we have drop beat. Some arrows. Type 2. So AV block, circles. Alright, cool. So most people were able to see that there was a P wave with no QRS following it, right? So you see a P wave with no QRS. What you want to look at is the preceding PRs, right? So all these PR intervals are the same, and then there's a random drop beat. So what is this?
Type 2.
Yes, a second degree heart block type 2, right? So there's different types of heart blocks. I'm not going to go through all the types of heart blocks, but one of the things you always want to look for in an EKG with syncope is some type of block. So there's a lot of debate about whether the first degree heart block is something that should be considered an abnormal EKG. D'Souza just sent out a paper that included it in patients above the age of 60. I don't think we're doing a lot of discharging our syncopes over the age of 60, 65 anyways, so I think that that's a less of an issue. In young people, first degree heart block has not been shown to be an abnormal EKG. Okay? So when they talk about abnormal EKGs or any abnormalities on EKG, non-specific ST and T changes, and first degree heart blocks are not considered abnormal EKGs in this context. Okay? Although there's debatable predictive value about whether that will progress, in general it's not unsafe. Secondary heart blocks, Mobitz 1 is typically considered a stable one. If there's patients syncopized that have a Mobitz 1, consider opting them. If they have a Mobitz 2, then they need a pacemaker. Okay? So heart block is one of the things you should look for. Alright, here's our second EKG.
Same complete, right?
So it's a little bit more to look at on this one. Somebody says Brugada, somebody says Osborne. So you guys are looking for things that could be related to syncope, right? Right bundle branch block, right bundle branch block, right bundle branch block. Alright, so let's see. So this person probably got the closest, right? So there's two major things you want to look at in this equation, okay? So you have a right bundle branch block pattern in the precordial leads with an RSR prime, and it's a complete right bundle branch block because the QRS is greater than 120 milliseconds, okay? So that's the first thing you want to notice. The second thing you want to notice is that there is an axis deviation, okay? Right bundle branch blocks, think of the right bundle as like the redheaded stepchild of the left side of the heart, right? Right heart things, unless they're really, really bad, should never affect the axis of the EKG. You have to have a massive amount of right ventricular hypertrophy to overwhelm the left ventricle, okay? So if you have axis deviation along with a right bundle branch block, you should think about something else going on, and typically it's a bifascicular block. By definition, it's a bifascicular block if you have left axis deviation with a right bundle branch block. So you should think about bifascicular blocks. These are predictive of progressing to complete heart block in the setting of a syncope patient. Okay? So think about ischemia, think about hypotension and hypertension, and then think about anterior MIs that can cause this. Right? This would be a reason to absolutely keep someone. Right? So think about heart blocks. Fascicular blocks, left anterior, left posterior fascicular blocks, and bifascicular blocks in particular. Too slow. Brady, true. You'd have to see pacer spikes to say that it's particular paced, and if it's particular paced, then your pacer is not working. Not quite. But it is, so maybe this person is getting at the fact that this doesn't appear to have very large P waves. So you can think about maybe this being junctional. So, right in the 30s, right? There's two major things you need to notice about this EKG. One is that the QRS is not narrow, right? So when you see bradycardia with a QRS that's not narrow, you need to think, is this junctional, or is it one other thing that's really, really dangerous?
Hyperkalemia.
What was that?
Hyperkalemia.
Hyperkalemia, okay? So whenever you see bradycardia with a wide QRS, you need to think hyperkalemia, 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 and then maybe this is junctional tachycardia after I give them calcium. Or junctional bradycardia after I give them calcium. So what differentiates the two from each other is if you see any P waves at all, right? So you see a P wave with a prolonged PR interval, and you see symmetric T waves. So this is a hyperkalemic bradycardic EKG, and this is a peri-arrest EKG.
What are the P waves?
You can barely see a P wave right here. Stromal hyperkalemic EKG. You can see it right here. Really, the symmetric. So you don't see T waves really here, but the symmetric hyperacute T waves are very characteristic of hyperkalemia. Okay? Super relevant for our population, right? Alright. There's a huge differential from bradycardia. I'm not going to go into all of it. Hyperkalemia is something you should always think about, especially with a widened QRS. Myocardial infarction and toxic stuff. Meds. Okay? Alright, next one. Keep looking for Brugada. We'll get there. In the interest of time, this is a QTC prolongation. Okay? This is a subtle QTC prolongation because usually we look for it being past half of the RR interval. So all the more reasons to calculate your own QTCs. Okay? This is an example of congenital QTC prolongation. So prolonged intervals are something you should always look for, especially prolongation of the QTC. There's a lot of things that can cause this. Electrolytes are one of the most common things when you're not taking any medications or anything like that. A lot of the antipsychotics can do this. We all know about prolonged QTC. So, what does this patient need? This is a mimicker of prolonged QTC.
I can't zoom in there.
You guys can't see it. Well, you can look
You
at
can
it.
click on it. Just click on it. This is not Brugada. I thought this was his son. Like
So this patient needs potassium. This is a classic U wave of hypokalemia. Right? So you see these U waves that are inside the T waves, the precordial waves.
Plus back.
They're going to need MAG eventually, but yes. I recognized that when I made that answer, that They need mag as well, probably, but they are hypocapable. There's a lot going on in this one, and does it look good or bad? It looks bad, right? So I'm going to show you guys the main points of the badness. So, the main points of the badness is this person has LVH, and they have ST depressions diffusely that are suggestive of strain. Okay? This could be acute ischemia, or it could be LVH with strain. What I want you to think about in the setting of syncope is that this person could have a really, really bad aortic stenosis. Okay? It's one of the things you should think about in the setting of syncope. It's one of the EKG findings that's suggestive of severe aortic stenosis. I don't have a ton of time to go through this second part, but if you guys want to try to join really quickly, it was too big for me to do it in one lecture.
Next is presentation.
Yep. I'll give you a hint, it's not Brugada. Yeah, so delta waves. So this has a slurred upstroke with a shortened PR. Okay? There's two accessory pathways. You can have a left accessory pathway or a right accessory pathway, and the axis deviation goes the opposite direction. So this person has right axis deviation with a prominent R wave in V1, which suggests right ventricular hypertrophy. However, this person does not actually have right ventricular hypertrophy. It just looks like they do because of their accessory pathway. So look for delta waves. It's one of the things you should always look for in your EKGs, and a shortened PR. This is an example of a WPW with a right-sided accessory pathway. You'll notice the left axis deviation, right? And you can see the delta waves most prominently in these precordial leads. See this upsloping, right? And shortened PR, really the shortened PR is the thing you should notice the most. Everybody's like, finally, yes! Alright, in the interest of time and obviousness, this is Brugada. And there's a few different types. Alright, so there's three types. Type 1 is the most predictive of spontaneously degenerating into a VTAC or VFib. The thing that I really want to point out in this is if you see Brugada incidentally on an EKG, it's actually quite meaningless. Okay? If you get it on EKG for somebody who's there for clearance or something, right? Unless it's a really obvious type 1, then they suggest telemonitoring. But other than that, the type 2s, which this is a type 2 with the saddleback, without symptoms of previous sudden cardiac death in the family, or cardiac disease, or syncope, they don't actually recommend that you have to keep this patient as an inpatient to work. I think I have 2 more. DIG presents more with multiple PVCs or regular AFib. There are some soft signs of LVH on this, right? You have really tall QRS complexes. Yeah, so this is hypertrophic cardiomyopathy. So you have left ventricular hypertrophy by these tall QRS complexes in your lateral leads, lateral precordial leads. The most important thing to notice on this EKG are these dagger-like Q waves in the lateral leads. So you have one AVL, V4 to V6, has really sharp dagger-like Q waves that are less than 40 milliseconds. Okay? These are pathognomonic for hypertrophic cardiomyopathy. One thing that I found interesting is it's actually really prevalent, but the obstructive form is not very prevalent. So a lot of people have hypertrophic cardiomyopathy, but most of them are not obstructive. The classic for this is that they collapse during insertion. I think I'm officially out of time, so I'll just talk about this one. This guy has epsilon waves, it's subtle change, okay? So when you look at these and you see epsilon waves with right ventricular hypertrophy, this is another one of those zebras that you should be looking for in your syncope patients. So this is arrhythmogenic right ventricular cardiomyopathy. It's just one of those things you gotta look for, right? I told you I'd get some more nuance as we got along, right? So epsilon waves are present in 30% of these. The classic findings are right axis deviation. So when you see this right axis deviation, especially with the prolonged QRS without a clear right bundle branch pattern, look for your epsilon waves. So they'll usually be in these inferior leads, but you can see them in actually all of them. So EKGs are complicated, but what I want you to look for in syncope, you can always look for your infarctions, right? Everybody's going to say, all right, does this have ST elevations? Does this have ST depressions? That's the stuff we're trained to look for. The things that I want you to look for specifically in every syncope EKG are the intervals, right? You can spot most of these things by shortened intervals or prolonged intervals. So look for PR being shortened, PR being elongated, so it's either a delta wave or a block, and look for QT being prolonged, right? And then look for conduction disturbances. So these are going to be evidenced by widened QRSs or axis deviations, right? So axis deviations and widened QRSs are something you should always look for within your EKGs. And then you really have to specifically look for the 3 syndromes that I highlighted in the last few slides. And that is looking for dagger-like Q waves of Hokum, looking for the coned upsweep and downsweep in V1 and V2 of Brugada, and looking for this specific RVH with epsilon waves of the AVRC. Okay?
Brian, good question.
Yeah.
In the bifascicular bifascicular block, what
Yep.
is the event causing the syncope? Is it just a conduction
Yeah, so
arrhythmia, or what happened?
bifascicular blocks in the setting of syncope, there's evidence that they can progress to trifascicular blocks and complete heart block. So it would be a complete heart block. They would have presumably caused the syncope, possibly.
But that would be a trifascicular, but a bifascicular.
So you can pop into a trifascicular and it
Oh,
becomes
you can
complete.
come in and out of it, yeah?
That would be the concern. That doesn't mean that that's absolutely what's happening. But if you see a bifascicular block in a setting of a syncope, I would be concerned that they had an episode of complete heart block that caused their syncope.
Okay.
Could have had an addition of an AV blocking medication or something that could cause.
Oh, okay.
Yeah.
If they're on a calcium channel blocker or something.
Abnormality or something like that.
But I would think that if they had a third degree, like you wouldn't lose, if they have a third complete heart, if they have a trifascicular block, I would assume that you would, just come in and out between a second and try a bi and trifascicular block.
So you usually don't. But if somebody came in with a syncope and had a bifascicular block, that would be a reason for me to keep them for sure.
Yeah, what you're worried about especially is that with either of those, or more likely with a trifascicular, you can progress to complete heart block or to a bad bradycardia, and you just didn't see it yet. So it's a chance they could have syncopized because they got bradycardia, and you got to watch them. And then you're close to a trifascicular. If you add a left axis to a right bundle, and then to that you add a prolonged PR, first degree, that's a trifascicular. You're not that far away.
And that needs to be.
And when you have those three together, that first degree adding on is now dangerous, although usually it's not.
This is a very exhaustive list. The only one I would say is PE.
Yeah.
And what you're going to see would be probably sinus tachycardia more commonly.
Yeah. That's the reason I put the first kind of slide in for us to talk about other history, right? You can't just get an EKG and say, oh, the EKG is normal and you can discharge them, right? Ideally, a PE that caused syncope would have shortness of breath and other findings. Ideally. Yes.
So Nishijima, one of our former residents, wrote a very large article about this. They looked at 3,000 patients, and they looked at 30-day rate of arrhythmias, and they found that even with a normal EKG, 3% of the patients had a significant clinical arrhythmia in 30 days. So just having a normal EKG doesn't rule it out.
Especially in the elderly.
What?
Yeah. So
Yes.
in patients who, these were